conference on standards and emerging technologies between Europe and India. It's a real pleasure and a real privilege for me to act as a moderator today. It's a relatively small room, but it's a very big topic, so I hope we will make it justice. I suggest that we slightly change the order of the agenda because the colleagues in Europe may not be available 30 minutes after the viewing ends. So if you don't mind, I would first like to give the special address to Mr. Chatterjee, and then after that I will immediately give the floor to Mr. William Neal, as well as Mr. Justin Wiltz from ECOS, and then we will resume with the normal flow of the afternoon. So I'm very happy to welcome on stage Mr. Sandeep Chatterjee. You are a scientist at the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, in short MeITI. Please have a seat, a very warm welcome. You are bringing 35 years of experience in translating research outcomes into commercial viability. So you are not only a true believer, but also a true practitioner. I'm very grateful for your participation today. You have dealt with cyber law, data protection, electronics material components, development, nanotechnology. You are now formulating an India strategy for research and development in materials, photonics, IoT, sensors, and additive manufacturing. A very broad and very visionary field. So thank you very much for accepting to be with us today. You hold a doctorate from the University of Delhi, and in particular you have worked on rare earth oxides, which is really like the typical strategic raw material that will shape the future of industry. And you are welcome to help us in this session to assess, evaluate, and identify areas of mutual cooperation, mutually beneficial cooperation between EU and India. So I've been asked to act as a very strict timekeeper, so I would love if you could give your introductory remark in about 10 minutes, and bonus points if it's even shorter, so that we can have more exchange with the audience. Thank you very much, Mr. Chatterjee. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure to discuss this topic. I have a presentation. Actually, if you see the last 8-9 years of our development after Digital India program, we have actually transformed our economy. Now we are aspiring to have $10 trillion economy, and typically 20%, that is $2 trillion, will come from the digital economy. And if you are talking about digital economy, that is actually not possible without the materials. And that is why the Government of India has come up with different manufacturing scheme and investment program, where we are actually taking our core foundation of the digital technology, that is chip manufacturing. And as you all know, if you are talking about today's device, talk about the smartphone, that is having 69 different elements in the periodic table. And many of the elements which you are receiving as a component or some fixtures or add-on in our smartphone or tab, whatever we are developing in our country, mostly they are the assembly industry, but that is not our goal. So entire component manufacturing system, entire supply chain should be there in our country. So in that entire aspiration of Government of India, circular economy is the only way we can sustain that growth. If you see some of the data, like in the normal pace of economy, of course I am thinking that we should be much faster than whatever we have seen last 3-4 years because of COVID and other things. If this existing rate of economy, if we grow, then also we will be consuming 30 billion tons of material in electronic and electrical sectors by 2027. Okay, and many of the things, as I mentioned, there are 69 elements to give you a functionality of the smartphone. You are using the screen of a smartphone very frequently here and there. You must know the functioning of that screen require 9 typical rare earth elements. They are no longer there in our planet. So, without thinking the circular economy way of development, it is not possible. And that is how 2021 Niti Aayog, the apex policy making body of Government of India, come up with 11 different sectors for coming out the action plan. One of the action plan, the circular economy action plan on electrical and electronics sector, has been devised by our ministry. Of course, there is a rich panel, European Union, REI, Resource Efficiency India, GIZ, and UN, and other international body also help us to come up with a very path-breaking action plan. And I have a very brief presentation to show what Ministry of Information Technology has contributed in this space. So, if you see the this discussion, maybe Niti has come out in 2021 in 11 different articles. Way back in 2016 or 17, we have already started talking on this topic. Because see, if you are just talking about the electronic waste management, it will never be possible if you are not designing the device in such a way that it will be having a longer life, it will be having a recyclability or refurbishability. As you all know, we are having our product where you have inherent obsolescence. The inherent obsolescence will not allow you to use your own smartphone after 2-3 years due to software doping, and some of the components design continuously they are changing due to the obvious reason. I am not discussing this here. So some of the developed countries, including USA, come up with right to repair. We are still discussing. So in our action plan, all those things we have incorporated, and we started some action on that. So before 2021, in 2019, we have come out with another policy paper, resource efficiency on EEE sector. There also we got assistance from EU, REI and GIZ. And there we found that we have a vast informal sector. Around 20, that is 2 million informal operators. They are not doing a good work, but if you are not taking into account in the policy making, rule making, you are missing some point. So we thought that policy paper in 2019 we published. So there we thought that 20 lakhs informal operators should be given a skill, affordable technology, affordable machine, so that this sector can be converted to the different level, the way they are operating. If you see Muradabad, if you see Silampur, their efficiency. I am not very much concerned about environment, which another ministry is looking after. I am concerned about my loss of material in this pollution. So 30% they are in, 70% is using. They know only gold, they know only copper, maximum silver. They do not have any idea of palladium. They have no any idea of lithium or other metals. They never learned or heard of those things. Maybe they are much costlier than gold. So they are just throwing away. My concern in that. So what we have to do differently, that we should actually get the value. So second report, that was also from Niti Aayog, where our ministry has contributed. It was on rare earth extraction from electronic waste. There we thought or found that we required to have a different type of cluster in the country, mega cluster, where formal and informal should work together. So for informals are very good collectors, but they have to give in a certain financial model so that they can offer those material. They should not process it. So this model, we thought that we should come out with a eco park. But since the subject matter of e-waste is a very typical one, all the ministries are saying it is not their subject. Like MOEF is saying we are the regulator. Subject matter goes to MOEF, they are saying we will be regulating only. Our ministry is saying there are power sector is also involved, telecom is also involved, why making it through. So anyway, eco park, proposed eco park in that document never happened in the country. In the third one, 2021 Circular Economy Action Plan, some of the action plan I can show here. So that action plan, if you say broadly, come up with some of the path-breaking policy piece, like we should define our sustainable product, we should come out with a green skill council, we should come out with some of the mechanism to start green public procurement in the country, we should come out with certain scheme where we should link to our promotional manufacturing scheme like PLI, EMC or SPECS to some percentage of attraction, that if you are a C index higher, so we will be giving you 1% extra. So those policy push we have included in the action plan, and whatever we are doing from 2007 in our ministry, when nobody was talking about e-waste that much, so we have started the cost-effective technology. And now in 2019, we have started, come out with two major things: cost-effective technology, skill development, because there were 100 or 500 recycling authorized recycler, but there is no adequate skill set. So we have developed for 21 products, and we are now having at 106 products. So we are now developing the content for skill development, how to dismantle it properly, what are the items having a hazardous material, how to be segregated, and how you can enhance the material value for that. So those parts we have already done from 2010. We enter 8 states of Northeast. We have created skilled manpower, entrepreneurs. So we have started from a disadvantaged places because we are government. So NILET Sikkim is the organization, through that we have mobilized in the 8 states in the Northeast. Then another project we have done in skill development in Punjab University, Chandigarh, for Haryana, Chandigarh and Punjab. Another project in our CMED Hyderabad, skill development for Andhra and Telangana. So these are some of the thing, and after that action plan, you must have seen already some of the action for MOEF, Environment and Forest. They have come out with another version of the rule. So the rule has been changed. Now the rule is having a different type of measures, like you have to have a conversion factor, EPR certification purchased by this thing. So these are some of the things in the rule making they have done to make it cleaner. Now collection target has been converted to the recycling target. So these are come from the action plan. I am not going into details. These are our technology repository already have developed our industry. Printed circuit board recycling, lithium ion battery recycling, hard disk magnet recycling from extraction of the rare earth, WEEE plastic recycling, extraction of solar values from the solar panel. Just now they have introduced in the rule, but we have already have the technology on that. So these are the technology repository we are proliferating through a center of excellence we have developed in 2019 with Telangana government and one of the industry Green Co. So this is a participatory funding initiative where we are creating startups, and for that we have associated with the IIT Hyderabad, where first time in the world MTech in e-waste management and engineering has been initiated, and those guys are joining to CMAT Hyderabad for as a startup. So this is our entire. This is the center of excellence. Now skill development already I mentioned, and we will be having that course content whatever we have developed for 21. Now it is NSQL approved also. So skill development ministry also can use that. So we will be now working from another 78 products that they have been introduced in the market. This is one of the things I should mention, that I have found no ministry has done anything on informal sector. First time in the country, Ministry of Electronics has started a program. We will be taking 15,000 informal from the market. We will be train them, giving the technology developing CMAT, NML and CPET by our ministry freely, and it will be done throughout the country through accelerators. So 30 cluster will be developed first time. And whatever the 500 recycler I am talking about, they are not doing the end treatment. Precious metal they are not extracting. This 30 cluster will be doing the precious metal extraction. So all the formal sectors can join with them. And once it will be formal sectors and taking a fund from MSME ministry, then GST calculation can also be started. So they will be in the formal fold. Presently all materials are getting lost and we are not getting any value to our tax system. So this is one of the path-breaking things. We have already started this program. And this is another thing we started in 2022 in February, SPECS program, where 25% subsidy for capital improvement we are offering to whoever is having the state-of-art recycling facility in the country. Now, already one project as held by EU REI, I think they will be publishing those things. So we should also learn what is the available best practices. What are the, how do we get our C rating in the country? So how to start with, how to actually augment the informal skill. So that also another thing. So that we have got already those reports with us. That will be helpful for our project to the cluster. So that will be done. So this is all other action in progress. There are a lot of things still required, like subscription model of the equipment in the government system. Why will be going for a purchasing of computers? We should see the services. So those things job in progress. I think I can end here. Okay, I'm sorry that I have taken some more longer time. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. Thank you very much, Dr. Indeed, we took a little more time than we had, so I'm sorry for the next speakers, but at the same time I'm very glad and grateful that you illustrated both the potential and the challenges, I mean the real world challenges with circularity. I'm in particular very happy that you used the reference to our famous cell phones. You mentioned 69 elements. I don't know if all of you in the room are chemical engineers, I'm certainly not, but that's like the vast majority. There are only 83 stable elements in the whole universe, and out of that whole chemical diversity in the world, we are using at least 69, if not more. So it's quite impressive the amount of complicated components that there is in something that we are all carrying around like if it's nothing. And the value if we were really able to do some waste mining. Another thing I want to emphasize that is really important to underline in the Indian context is this notion of making the formalizing of the repair economy inclusive. I think it's a major hurdle if it is perceived that only a few large companies or large networks would benefit, and the fact that it is distributed for the whole sector to be lifted up makes it more acceptable and more appealing in the Indian context. You also mentioned skills, research and development, infrastructures. I think the EU is trying to help in the broad spectrum, but it's very good to be brought back to the specifics of a particular industry. And e-waste, because usually it's very expensive machines and that have a relatively short span of life for the amount of money we put into it, are an excellent starting point and an excellent example. So thank you very much for that. I wish I could discuss longer, but mindful of the time, I would like now to give the floor, as I said, to the colleagues who are connected, or I hope are connected from Europe, starting with Mr. Wilkes, the Executive Director of ECOS, that is the Environmental Coalition on Standards. He also brings 25 years of professional experience to the discussion. He has been an accredited observer to UNEP, the UN Environment Assembly, the UN One Planet Network. They contribute to a number of impactful campaigns on plastic, on right to repair, the cooling sector, and energy saving. Previously, Justin also worked for the European Industry Association promoting renewable energy. He worked for the WWF and also worked on REACH, the registry for chemical products in Europe. Justin, can you hear me? Justin, we cannot hear you yet. If you are here, open your mic. Justin, 1, 2, 3. Test. Okay. Let's. I see the slide. Maybe the volume. Justin, last.
But we can't hear now.
We can't. So we see that you are speaking, but we cannot hear you. So please give us.
Maybe the people in the room don't.
Yes, now we hear you. Now it's working. So welcome. Thanks for your participation. Good to hear again. You have the floor.
I think we continue to have some problem with the sound. Let me just tell the word later.
Justin. Justin, can you hear me? I'm afraid we have lost you again, and there is a lot of echo in the room. Okay, I'm sorry, Justin. For now, we will try and see if we have no chance with Mr. Neil. William, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Is it William?
It's Justin.
Okay, Justin. Thank you very much. Yes, we can hear you. So let's try that way. We will flip the slides for
Now
you.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I can see you. I can see you just switch microphones.
Okay. Justin, you have the floor. Please go on.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to be able to speak to you today. Should I be sharing my own PowerPoint?
Yes, please.
You've disabled my screen sharing, so I can't for the moment. So that could be changed by your IT people. That would allow me to share my PowerPoint.
Sorry, it's not
able to share. It's not able to share the slides. Okay, now we can see it.
Okay, good. We can see my first slide now, I think. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today.
Sorry,
Justin, you are not full screen. It looks very, very small from where we sit. They are saying that you can put it full screen, but they can't.
I'm
very sorry for the technical issues.
Yes, I'm struggling to put it onto full screen. As I think you can see.
Maybe you can just enlarge and move forward.
We can
see your screen, but in editing mode.
You still see it in editing mode?
Yes, we do, but please proceed. I think it's going to be okay.
Yes,
let's move on. Sorry, Justin.
I can see that the screen's not moving though. You still have the title page, and I've moved to the second page.
That's correct.
I can see that the screen is not moving your side though.
Yes, it doesn't move.
I'm not sure how would you like me to proceed if my PowerPoint is not moving.
I think, I mean, I hear all sorts of cues that there would be workarounds, but for the interest of time, you should just speak, if you don't mind, based on your slides. I mean, in any case, all the slides we will ask the presenters to share with the participants. So if you don't mind, Justin, please just speak us through your slides and main ideas. Justin, did you hear me? Now we see the slides full screen.
No, I'm not able to hear you.
Oh, good. So if you could proceed, I mean, just talk us through the slides, and then we will distribute them anyway, if that's okay.
So will you move my slides?
We do see the title slide full screen.
So we have done from console. He has not done that.
Okay, so now they have taken your slides. We will switch the slides from here. So just please ask the technical team to skip between slides whenever you want. And you can start talking.
Okay.
The next slide.
So thank you very much. So if you could move to the next slide and then the following slide. So I'd like to just present the outline of what I'd like to talk to you today about. So I'll introduce ECOS very quickly. Then I'll talk about the eco-design of batteries and electronic products. And then plastics with a focus on circular fishing gear, which is a piece of work we're doing within the standardization system. And then the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. So starting with introducing ECOS. Next slide, please. ECOS is an international environmental NGO with a network of members and experts advocating for environmentally friendly technical standards, policies and laws. Next slide, please.
Next, please.
We work within the standardization system, we work on policy and advocacy, and we work within campaigns, and we're a very technically minded organisation given our work within the standardization system. Next slide, please. And we are the voice of the environmental community within the standardization system, whether that's at regional or international level. Next slide, please. So in terms of batteries and electronic products, why is that necessary? It's important from a usage perspective. 40% of Europe's citizens' budget of planetary boundaries are used up by electronic products. This is the fastest growing waste stream in the world, and under 20% is recycled. The sourcing triggers conflicts, human rights abuses, chemical pollution and environmental degradation, and the standards and laws are currently insufficient. Next slide, please. In terms of what ECOS wants to achieve, we want to ensure that the global market provides enabling conditions for low environmental impact electronic products and batteries, and this can be done through ambitious standards, regulations and labels. Electronic products and batteries are the instruments of a fair digital transition, and through a life cycle approach advocating for standards, laws and eco-labels, we can drive the market towards sustainable electronic products and batteries. And I think it's important to get our priorities right and our hierarchy right. We need to ensure that electronic products and batteries are long-lasting, repairable and energy efficient. Waste management prevents the waste of electronics, and a reduced and better quality extraction of material respecting environmental and social requirements. Next slide, please. We need to ensure that electronic products are both reliable, they long last, and are repairable, and they're durable. The promotion of a universal right to repair is important, and we're currently working on legislation within Europe to ensure that universal right to repair, and that legislation is coming to a close. And we also think that information for end users is absolutely crucial. EPEAT being an example from the Global Electronics Council, an example of a good environmental label. We need to ensure that when communicating to consumers that energy efficiency measurement is representative of real life. Energy labelling pulls the market towards best products, and energy bills and carbon impacts decrease as a result of that communication to consumers. We need to also ensure that waste management prevents waste of electronics, so we need early separation collection. We need to ensure that waste collection systems preserve reusability and recyclability of electronic products and prevent leakages. We need to ensure that reuse operators and non-profit repair communities participate in the prevention of waste, electronics and batteries. Next slide, please. And also it's very important to reduce and improve extraction of resources for electronics and batteries. Raw material extraction should be limited to a minimum. Extraction should respect environmental and social requirements, and we would like to promote the concept of urban mining, recycled materials that are used in manufacturing of new products and spare parts. Next slide, please. I'll just very briefly highlight the standardisation landscape from a European and international perspective. I think Christian will go into more detail here, so I won't dwell. So next slide, please. Highlights the material efficiency standards that Europe pioneered, a very important group of standards. from Senelec. We participated in those standards and we were very supportive of those. Next slide, please. And one final slide on standardisation, so Christian will dwell here. Also wanted to highlight current standard nearing completion at IC 63395 on sustainable e-waste management. Essential principles there are best environmental outcome, pollution prevention, life cycle perspective, precautionary principles, systems approach, creative collaboration, and continual improvement. So we also wanted to highlight the importance of that standard that will be soon adopted within the IEC. Next slide, please.
Justin? Justin, can you hear me? Justin, I think we've lost you. Can you hear me?
Will we lose the connection?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you are back. You are
I
back.
can no longer.
You are back.
I can no longer see the connection. I can no longer see the video. But if you can hear me, I shall continue.
Yes, we can hear you, and we can
To the
see the
next slide.
slide on the GEC EPIT criteria.
Okay. So here is the Global Electronics Council EP criteria. We participated in the shaping of that eco-label, an important eco-label for public procurement issues, covers material selection, product longevity, design for reuse and recycling, and critical rare earths, rare earth materials, responsible end-of-life management, zero waste manufacturing, and water consumption in the supply chain. We are also following a number of other EU eco-design proposals on displays on mobile phones, smartphones, external power supplies, computers and servers. I won't go into the details here, as obviously we're running a little bit behind time, and I think William might touch on these elements as well. And key within Europe as well at the moment is energy labelling requirements on smartphones, provision of a QR code, energy efficiency rating from A to G, battery endurance per charge cycle, some information on that, repair score, battery endurance, and ingress protection rating as well. So some very interesting labelling requirements coming for smartphones in Europe. Very briefly, if I touch on plastics, I just wanted to touch on circular fishing gear, which is coming out of the European Union's single-use plastics legislation that was adopted back in 2021, if I remember correctly. There was a request from the European Union for standardisation bodies to develop circular fishing gear. So that work is now coming to a conclusion, and the EU requirements and guidance has 6 parts, and what we're pushing for is the removal of biodegradation clauses, as we don't think that's suitable for Europe, and we want to ensure that if there is a biodegradation clause, then obviously it takes into account freshwater and marine environments, and we need to ensure that legislation in Europe is ambitious, and where ISO standards are not sufficiently strong, then we need to move forward with a legislative approach in Europe. And finally, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. I just want to touch on this piece of legislation, perhaps more briefly than I would have otherwise done. As on Monday evening, the European Union finally reached an agreement on the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, and that's taking the eco-design approach that was only for electronic or energy-related products. That will now apply to all products entering the European Union market. When it comes into force, it will apply to all product groups. It will impose, if you like, durability, repairability, reusability, upgradability, and assess the the presence of substances of concern. It will introduce the digital product passport for information to be able to travel across the value chain relating to sustainability information, and there will be reporting on the destruction of unsold goods, and that's different from sector to sector. It's quite an important change for Europe, and will have an impact globally. And I just want to leave you with essentially the sectors that will be covered by the new eco-design legislation. That will be textiles, so garments and footwear. Will be furniture, including mattresses, tyres, detergents, paints, and intermediary products such as iron, steel, lubricants, and chemicals. So we'll have an impact, and I think it's very important from a trade facilitation perspective that we get the standards right to ensure that eco-design is not a green barrier to trade, but is encouraging a race to the top within Europe and outside Europe. And there I will leave my presentation.
Thank you very much, Justin, and my apologies again for the technical glitches. We could hear most of the words and most of the slides. It's not necessarily at the same time, but I think we got the main ideas. I'm very grateful in particular that you underlined the interplay between the standards themselves, industry-driven standards, the inclusive policy making and policy advocacy, and eventually the awareness raising and empowerment of consumers, the three pillars for managing the change towards circularity. So thank you very much for that, and also for flagging the SPR. There is, as you say, there is an impact, or there could be an impact that goes beyond the borders of EU, and it needs a lot of explaining and awareness raising also in partner countries, including India. So I think there will be plenty of need and room for doing that in the years and months to come. So thank you very much. The slides will be made available, and that will be the start of a conversation. Now, without further ado, still mindful of time, I would like to invite William Neal to take the floor first. William, can you hear me? William Neal, can you hear me? If you can hear me, I cannot hear you yet. Mr. Neal, the last speaker. Okay, so I was just told Mr. Neal is not online. He's a close colleague. We are both working for the European Commission, both for the Director General for Environment. So I hope I can partly fill in his presentation, or I will give him the floor if and when he's available. For now, I'd like to resume with the initial agenda, and therefore give the floor to Mr. Ajay Lal, if you don't mind joining us. Mr. Ajay Lal is representing the Bureau of Indian Standards. He's bringing 24 years of experience in certification and standardization, audit and quality management. He notably worked on agriculture, chemicals, food safety, and environmental management. The BIS is a major partner for the CESAI project, the organizers of this conference, and we are very glad that they are represented today. You have the floor, sir.
So as you would be aware, BIS is the national standards body of India, and we are responsible for framing the national standards in all the sectors. circular economy being one of the sectors which is being dealt by the chemical department in Bureau of Indian Standards. I will not go into the details, but I'll just share that we have 16 departments dealing with various subjects such as civil, electrical, mechanical, medical, electronics. So like these several sectors are there, and we work with those sectors both for the standardization as well as we have around 40 branch offices all over India which are into the certification of those products for which licenses are granted by BIS. So this is brief about BIS. Coming directly to the subject that we have today, if you see what we mean by circular economy is using the same resources again and again through a flow of the resources, and if you put sustainability into that, it would say that it is that state of the system where we are able to meet our own needs without compromising the needs of the future generation. But the three pillars that are there, that is the environment, social and environmental, that have to be taken into consideration. So both of them taken together would be able to have a system where you have a credible circular economy system. So this is a brief. I don't know whether you are able to see it clearly, but the red line basically refers to the portion which is basically lost or where you are not able to get it. The blue line is what I didn't get. Okay, it's an echo. How do we stop it? This one, is it audible? Is it okay now? Yeah. Okay, so basically the red line is what is lost in this system, and the blue line is what we say is the portion which we recover, whether it is by reusing or recycling or repurposing or remanufacturing or refurbishing, whatever you may call. That is the portion that is coming back into the system again. So that is the system where we have to concentrate. It's a sort of increasing the life of the product. If you say that you repurpose the product, for example, a battery that you use in an automotive, if you can repurpose that battery and use it probably in your in-house as an inverter battery and extend the life of that battery, that is also a part of the circular economy. Or if you are able to manufacture that product, maybe by replacing some of the parts, some of the components that may have not gone bad, and then use it for a further period of life, that is also a part of circular economy. And the green is where you are able to do it without affecting the environment. So basically, this is a flow chart of how circular economy should work rather, and if you ask us how we have gone about doing standardization in the field of circular economy. So basically, since it was a new subject to us, we have been participating in the ISO directly for this. One of the main areas, I don't know whether you are aware of the way that BIS makes standards. We follow a committee system which is similar to ISO. Only thing is ISO has countries as their members, whereas we have organizations and experts as the members, but we do not do a voting system. We do not go for a balloting system. We have what we call as consensus based standards, which definitely does not mean unanimity, but it means that you have the major people agreeing to that, or a majority of the people in the committee agreeing to it. The committee represents all the stakeholders which we can get, for example, manufacturers, consumers, consumer organizations, users, laboratories, regulatory bodies, regulators, technologists, all are a part of the committees, and we ensure that all the stakeholders are represented in these committees. So when we went about standardization in this field, one of the main activity that we did was to develop the expertise in the committee, and that was done by looking and engaging various experts that we could. Then the second major thing that we did was we checked out the literature that's available. For example, if something is already available somewhere, there is no fun in doing it again and again. And in this case, this was the most or best approach that we followed, because what we have done till now is that we have been participating directly in ISO with a very strong presence, and we have been very active and participating and you can say contributing to the formulation of standards at the international level itself, so that tomorrow when we intend to adopt those standards as Indian standards, we are at par with the global standards that have been accepted. And so the industry in India is also geared up to have that same standards which are there at the international level. Then we also went about getting feedbacks on the standards on the developed documents that we had. We did this by organizing various seminars and webinars so that we could get the insight of the experts that we have. And based on that, what we intend to do is we'll prepare those working drafts, and as is the practice in BIS, we send it for what we call as a public consultation, and once we get the views of the various stakeholders, then we finalize those documents. And this is done by this committee that we have in BIS. We have an environmental management committee in BIS which formulates standards related to the environment, and if you see the scope, it includes the life cycle assessments, the greenhouse gas management, the climate change and adaptation, and there are certain exclusions also where we clearly say that these are not a part of the scope of this particular committee. And then if you see the international liaising that we do it with ISO TC 323, that is circular economy, ISO 207, that is environmental management, as well as ISO 265, that is on the carbon dioxide capture, transportation and geological storage. That's also a committee on which we have been actively participating. And these are the documents in which we have been very actively participating, which are being developed by ISO. The first three documents have reached the final stage, that is the FD stage, which is going to be launched very shortly by ISO, and we have been a part of this. In fact, the chairperson of our committee has also been sponsored by ISO for attending this circular economy meetings. So he is one of the regular participants of these meetings. And as Dr. Sandeep told, these are the 11 areas that have been identified by the NITI Aayog in circular economy. So if you can see the various areas that are there: scrap metals, lithium-ion batteries, tires and recycling, gypsum, end-of-life vehicle cases, electronic waste, which Sir talked about a lot, and municipal solid waste, agricultural waste, solar panels. So these are the 11 sectors on which work in India is going on in circular economy, and we have also been active in this in the sense that if you see the project reports or the sector-wise reports, there are various tasks that have been provided to BIS in the form of development of standards on them, and we have been doing that. And if you see particularly in the topics that of today, that is e-waste, we have made certain standards. The first two standards are adoptions of the IEC standards, that is dealt by our electrical department that they do, and the third standard and the fourth standard is basically developed by us. Particularly this last standard 17862, if you see, that was a standard that we made for storage, collection, dismantling and recycling of e-waste, and that was based on the CPCB guidelines, but that is in the stage of being revised, because as Sir told, the e-waste guidelines have been recently revised by the MOEF also, and that includes a lot of new things which included that EPR and the manufacturer's responsibility and all those that is going to come. So this standard is presently needs to be revised, and it is under the process of revision. And the second, if you see in plastic waste, if you see we have two standards that we have specifically for recovery and recycling of plastic waste. One is IS 14534, which deals with the selection, segregation and processing of plastic waste and scrap. And second is the designation system that we have. So if you see in plastic waste recycling, it is mainly the mechanical recycling which is happening in the country. The collection, identification and mechanical recycling is, I will say, quite successful that can be done as compared to the chemical recycling. And especially it is very good in case of PET bottle recycling. That is, I think, so one of the success stories in this, where we have been able to do a lot of work in the particularly in the PET bottle recycling. However, if you come to the chemical recycling part, I would say it is not a big success, but it is being explored in the country through the pyrolysis process, and the chemicals can be used either for polymerization, but I would not say, okay, I have tried to go very fast with this. And this is the other standard that we have developed, and this is basically why important is that it gives a designation system for the plastics that we have. Typically, if you see, these are the designation systems that we use. That is, one is being used for PET and two for SDP, and similarly all these designation systems are there. So this is what we have been able to do, but coming to what are the challenges that we are facing in this is basically we are not able to get good experts, particularly from the industry. Because if you want to make standards specific to industries, for example, horizontal standards are very easy to be made. But when you come specific to either industries which are, you can say, energy guzzling industries, for example, cement industry or steel industry, it becomes very difficult to include circular economy as a part of their work, because the life cycle assessment initially is very difficult to do. So we are not able to get a good amount of experts in that. And there is a lot of paucity of academic and research people also that are not working into this. So that is one area where we need to work a lot. There is nothing which says that lack of awareness among the consumers, among the stakeholders is very there, because a lot of industries are themselves not aware as to how you implement the circular economy within their own systems. So these are one of the few issues that we have followed or which are facing. And we hope that in the time to come, after we are able to formulate the horizontal standards, particularly in the next stage, we will be able to form sector-specific standards. So I think so. I'll end with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lal, and thank you in particular for being very comprehensive in all the sectors and areas that you are addressing, as well as very candid about the kind of challenges that you are facing. I was fortunate to listen to His Excellency Mr. Jai Shankar on Monday. He was speaking during a global summit on technology, on the geopolitics of technology, and how India was very mindful of taking up, of developing a number of patents, a number of standards in the years to come in certain sectors that are considered of strategic importance for the economic development and for the self-reliance, for the strategic independence of India. And we also in Europe, we have a lot of different member states and different sectors with different perspectives. So we have had a long experience in trying to convene and bring the people to the table, so to make them realize that an engagement on certain environmental topics was also beneficial from an economic perspective, because it meant improvement in efficiency. And that strong link between becoming greener and becoming more efficient and becoming more economically competitive, I think is a very important and hard to pass message. So we are happy to further increase dialogue on that topic, and it's very important now that we are considering the next phase of CESE. We have in the conference, if not in this room, we have the people in SEN, SENEDEC, ETSI, that are willing to engage with the Bureau of Legal Standards and other standard setting body, and also to work on more, downstream from the standards, to also work on the standardization ecosystem and the acceptability, the market controls that boost the importance of standards and make it more vital and more immediately pertinent to the industry. So let's just keep the conversation open. Next, I'm told that Dr. Aparna Dhawan will be online. I would like just to check if Mrs. Dhawan is online. Yes, we can see you, Dr. Dhawan, I think. Can you hear me? No, it's me. No, it's me on screen. I know it's you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Christian, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear, but I think we have lost the room now.
No, I can't hear them.
Can you hear me now?
And they are also disappearing from the participant list, so the room is disconnected. Oh no, it's
no,
still
we can
there.
hear you. Can you hear me?
It's still there. Okay.
Can you hear
I don't
me?
know.
If somebody can come where Mr. Ajay Lal spoke, probably we can hear better because we're not sure we can go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Can you please put it on the text?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, please.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Dr. Aparna Dhawan, Senior Counselor at the CII Institute of Quality. Very warm welcome. You are the head of the Quality Standard Department at CII. You are bringing 25 years of experience in the area of conformity assessment, policy and advocacy related matters, and accreditation. You are... Sorry. Yeah. You have worked in different accreditation boards in India, including the NABCB and the NABL. I'm not familiar with the acronyms, to be perfectly honest, but I'm very glad because I connect very well with what I was just saying regarding the need to not only develop good standards, but develop a good conformity assessment and a downstream environment for standards. So you are very welcome. I'm sorry it took a little time to give you the floor, and I know that Christian is still waiting in the line, so my apologies for that, but you have the floor and very welcome.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction. And good afternoon, the respected delegates on the dais, as well as ladies and gentlemen. I know we are running behind schedule, and having heard the other speakers, I'm looking into the technical glitches which are being faced. I would say that this presentation need not be taken ahead. I would just speak, and maybe now, having heard the speaker and the talks, maybe I would have some thoughts which I would share and express. So I begin with saying that it's actually a great honor to be here for this conference because, this is an issue which is affecting all of us, regardless of the country where we are present, regardless of the region, regardless of the social status. And we are all transiting today from a linear model to a circular model. And when we talk about the circular model approach of it, we all know that the recycling, yes, I agree, is a matter of concern where we are all working together. But there is a need wherein we also look into the design of the products so as to ensure that we have minimal uses of chemicals during the production. We have more of the modeling techniques which we used so that at the end the reduction of the final product is such that there is a reduction in the waste generation besides the recycling part. So when we look at the standards, I would make my talk now a little generic to update you on whatever are the developments in India. Besides, I will not touch upon because METI is already presented. The ISO 323 is already being presented, part of it, and the other part of it is already being done. Just a minute, please. So, when we look into the standards and the regulatory perspective, there have been action taken both at the international and national level, and we are aware about the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. So I will not be touching upon that. But as regards to the ISO TC 323, we are aware, and my previous speaker, Mr. Ajay Lal, has already mentioned that he's working closely in the area of the standard support. The BIS is supporting the ISO committee to standardize the circular economy framework and the actions related to that. In addition to that, am I audible?
Yes, thanks, working.
Okay, thank you. In addition to that, there have been certain actions and acts which have been developed by the Indian policy makers. I will touch upon few of them. One, earlier in 2022, we had an amendment in our Energy Conservation Act, where Government of India developed the aspect related to the regulation and standardization for the energy consumption. And these standards and rules are directed to the appliances, to the vehicles, industrial and commercial establishment of the buildings. And when it's enforced, the polluter has to pay in principle. So the amendment is being set up such that there is a carbon trading mechanism. There are energy saving certificates which will be provided by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. In addition, we have another policy which is the National Resource Efficiency Policy, which is being developed, wherein, as already mentioned by my earlier speaker, because I could minimally hear them, wherein there is a move towards minimize the waste through the interventions in the product life cycle, and also to create high value with less use of resources. And once implemented, this will allow the companies as well as industry to take responsibility for their products and demonstrate their commitment to lowering the carbon footprint. The Niti Aayog aspect has already been touched upon because that's something between Ministry of Environment, Forest, as well as Niti Aayog on the 11 focus area which Mr. Ajay Lal already touched, so I will not be repeating that. Plus, we have a National Electric Mobility Mission for the electric vehicles, which is being done. And in addition, green hydrogen is being used as a potential solution to decarbonize some hard-to-abate sector which we just spoke upon on refinery, ammonia, methanol, etc. Additionally, there are solid waste management rules which have been notified in 2016. And another milestone which all of you would be aware is the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules, which is actually banning the single-use plastic, as well as there are other rules for the e-waste management, construction and demolition waste management, metal recycling processes. So on the regulatory framework, we see there has been a development which has happened at the Indian level. When we talk about the European level, I know there have been a lot of actions and regulations which have been taking place. Another ambit is on the ISO part of it for the development of the standards. Yes, we all see that whole aspect being taken care of. Recycling, remanufacturing, maintenance, repair, and the works which can go on. I wanted that there was a presentation which I developed which can be circulated to the participants later on, which was talking about the Ellen MacArthur framework, where it's not just the technical the activity which is required, there's also a biological part of the activity which is required within the industry, within the companies to be taken care of. I'll just touch upon them. Besides the remanufacturing, reuse, and these aspects, it is also essential when we look into the biological part of it, is based on the waste which is being generated. Can we use the biomass for generation of electricity, maybe to a smaller extent? Second, the composting part of it, whatever is happening, can we use it for the biogas generation? In addition to that, what is the energy recovery we are trying to work on and focusing on the landfilling part of it for the recovery of energy? And then it is also essential that the landfilling is being appropriately mentioned. Now, when I'm speaking this, all of you would be thinking, why this thought? Just look at the MSMEs and the smaller industries which we have in India. We are sitting in the conference speaking about everything. Are they implementing it on ground up there is a question. So there could be some kind of actions or some kind of driving forces, or some kind of policy intervention wherein these clusters, when you have, for example, Government of India is talking about ODOP scheme, one district, one product, part of it for the export. These clusters, can we think about looking into the aspect of where we have a consolidated approach of activity which is being there? So this was one focus area that I wanted to highlight. The second, as my previous speaker said, is there are standards on management product. There are ISO 14,000 series, 5,000 series, 45,000 series, which talk about the environment management principle. There is this ISO 323 is developing standards related to circular economy. But when we talk about the technical specifications, there is a void and a gap for the industry to implement. How is it that you go through the whole aspect, and how does the industry manufacturer improvise a particular thing during the life cycle development? So when you're talking about that part of it, so another recommendation that I would have is you develop a guidance or a standard in regard to the technical specification. I understand BIS is looking forward to do that, but there is an industry gap which Mr. Ajilal has pointed out. So maybe on the ground in Delhi we meet some other time and then look into how CII can support BIS in getting this activity done. We are already supporting CII on the ESG standard development, so we can always support this part of the activity as well. The next, when you're talking about the Indo-European collaboration and the policy perspective of the standardization, I will put forth two more points. We have standards being developed, but is there a possibility wherein we also develop a guidance or a standardized mechanism? If it's being developed, please be excused, on evaluation of the environmental aspects of sustainability during the manufacturing process. How do you ensure the effective monitoring? I know compliances, third-party conformity assessment is the solution for it. But do we have an appropriate, harmonized guidelines and activities in this direction so that which we can uniformly implement and ensure is done on ground? The second is, if there could be a guideline on categorization of chemicals which are more appropriate for usage during the life cycle of the products. Would be my third take on it. The next would be if there could be an aspect which we can say that how do you assess the proportion of reused components in products? What is the guidance on material circularity consideration as well as waste management? I know best practice sharing is an option, capacity building is an option. We are already working with a number of European organizations to build the capacity in India. And also at CII Institute of Quality, we have 4 verticals. One is on the quality and the standards part of it. The second vertical is on the total productive management, for which we are working with the Japanese Institute of Plant Management. And under that, there is already a requirement wherein during the entire life cycle, wherever the productivity management happens, our our advisors guide the industry to improvise it, and there is an element of net zero emissions already built into that. The another model which we function is on the business excellence, which has sustainability, zero waste, recycling, digital technologies to be used already inbuilt, for which we have a collaboration with Walred Foundation as well as EFQ part of it. But over and above, if there is a standard template which we can follow, there is, because I know local standards are being developed, there are ISO standards being developed, but on certain areas, if we are all harmonized in our approach, it can help us deliver better. So at CII Institute of Quality, the organization which I represent, that is the Center for Excellence within CII, we are continuously working to collaborate with our partners, wherein we can ensure that the industry compliances with regards to the latest global developments which are happening are met, be it digitalization, be it circular economy, be it sustainability part of it. So if there is something which we can collaborate with the partners who are present here, be it the National Standards Body with whom we are already working very closely, or be it with the different organizations from the European Union, we would be happy to do that. My email ID can be sought from the organizers. And at this juncture, I would like to thank Stacey Sensenelak for giving me this opportunity to be presenting my views. I know you may feel that some areas are a little stronger. Yeah, but then I did want to come out with some kind of generic guidelines, because when we talk about scheme owners, we have different ones operating in different parts of the world. But there is a need that we harmonize the practice of implementation, because from an industry perspective, it is very difficult for them to meet multiple requirements. So I know I've been very quick and fast, and I did not present for the paucity of time. In case there are any questions, you can either write to me or raise it. But I can assure you there's a lot of problem for us to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhawan. It's very good to hear and heartwarming to see that there is a mutual appetite on the EU side, in the BIS, and in the industry stakeholders such as the CII Institute of Quality, as well as the Quality Council of India, with whom we are also closely in touch, to have this conversation, to continue and intensify this cooperation. We have in the room Dr. Arora, who will also take the floor later, and she will be in the lead for the next phase of our cooperation with India and with the ministries and with NITI Aayog. So I think there is plenty of room to make and strengthen those connections. I'm also very grateful that you complemented the intervention of Mr. Lal in the sense that not only it's hard to mobilize all the relevant stakeholders around the same table while developing a sector-specific standard, but it's maybe even more challenging to take the big picture perspective and to start looking at connections and synergies across sectors, because then it makes a very, very large room and a very, very large table. So thanks so much, and also grateful that you adapted on the fly and didn't put us through the challenge of putting the slide on screen. That saved us a little time, although we are still very, very late. So now I would like to turn to Mr. Dvorak, the chairperson of the European Sensenelec SABE Circular Economy Topic Group and also chair of the Environmental Committee at Sensenelec. Can you hear me, Christian? Christian, can you hear me? Christian, can you hear me?
I can hear you, so...
And we can hear you. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for your presence and your participation, and for your patience as well. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Shall I try to share my slides? I used the PDF version, so it should be easier than with the PowerPoint.
We're first going to try and put the slides on our side.
Give it a try. Huh?
Let's try and get it from our side. Can you put the slide of Mr. Dvorak on the screen?
And now I will go at full screen. Put this away. and you should see my slide.
So I have your slide, but they are coming from our end.
Give me a signal if this is okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me,
I can't
Christian?
hear you for the moment.
Can you hear me, Christian? Can you hear me, Christian?
Now I can hear you, yes, again.
Okay, so we have your slides from our hand. So you just tell me when you want to switch and I will pass the slide for you. Is that okay?
Okay, so I stop screen sharing now. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Christian. Sorry for that. You have the floor.
Okay, then good. Then I have to organize it differently. So we start with slide number 1, or the introduction, or the headline slide, Sensenelec activities in sustainability, environment and circular economy. I will give you an insight today on how we organize this in Sen and Senelec since a couple of years, and for me it's always important that we keep these 3 subjects together: sustainability, environment and circular economy, and that we do not divide them, which I see a certain tendency at the moment in the circular economy standardization community, where we have invented a lot in circular economy, the new TC 323 we heard about, but we should not forget our achievements we have achieved in the past in ISO, IEC and also in Senelec about the classic fields of sustainability and environment, which are important preconditions and important parts and elements of the new headline circular economy. So in Sen, or Senelec, or more in Sen, the whole thing, if you go to slide number 2, sorry, forget it. On slide number 2, you can see that we have the so-called Strategic Advisory Body on Environment in Sen and Senelec SABE. Since quite some years, it goes back to the late 90s, where we installed SABE at the Sen site as a strategic advisory board on environmental matters to Sen BT. So also from the still from the 1990s on, we had an organization called SABE in Sen, which gives strategic advice to the BT. How can future environmental challenges can be implemented and can be solved by using the medium of standards. Slide number 3. In May 2020, we changed the organization slightly, or we extended the organization of SABE to include the Senelec side. So the Strategic Advisory Body on Environment from 2020 on became a joint approach between Sen and Senelec, which sounds quite logical because the environmental importance doesn't stop at the Sen side, but it has also to consider the Senelec side, and as materials and something are used on both sides in non-electrical products and also in electrical products, it is logical that you can only have the full power on these environmental aspects if you do joint activities between both sides. Next slide, please. How did this happen and why did we do this in 2020? William is not with us today, but he would have told us more deeper why this happened. It was stipulated to the European Green Deal and of course to the European Circular Economy Package, and this was and is still high on the European Union's political agenda. We said as Sensenelec, we have to prepare to make our organization fit for that, because we expect now a lot of circular economy and Green Deal driven policies where we can support with producing standards and where Sensenelec can play a major role of producing standards which are directly connected to the European Green Deal and Circular Economy package. Next slide, please. So this is how we are organized in Sensenelec at the moment with this topic. As you can see here in the middle, centered the Sensenelec Strategic Advisory Body on Environmental Matters, SABE, which I was referring to. And SABE is on one hand side, as explained, giving strategic advice to Sen and Senelec BT, but on the other hand side, as you can see here with many arrows around SABE, it talks to other organizations, to other Senelec, let's say TCs, but also sector forums and coordination groups which deal with environmental or circular economy related aspects. For example, the Senelec sector forum on energy management we coordinate with, but also other important coordination groups like, for example, the Adaptation for Climate Change, but also the coordination group on eco-design. So SABE plays here a quite centered role, and on top of that we communicate with the classical line structure or the TC structure. So all TCs that deal with circular economy, environment and sustainability are members of SABE and constantly report, and we exchange, and what is most important here, we exchange knowledge and hopefully avoid double work. And on the other hand side, we have regular participation within SABE from different DGs of the European Commission, of course DG Environment, but also DG Grow and DG Energy are regularly attending SABE meetings and presenting the newest development in the legislative scene, so that we can early act and prepare ourselves where are standards needed to support the different regulatory initiatives from the European Commission.
Christian, may I interrupt you for just a second? Maybe for the benefit of the audience who may not be as familiar as you are with the workings of the European institutions. So Sensenelec are the standardization bodies, but the Director General that Christian was referring to are basically the equivalent of European ministries in Europe. Director General, we have the GROW is the one for industry and the single market, the one for energy, I think is self-explained naturally. The one on environment concerns itself with biodiversity and circular economy in particular. That's the one I'm serving together with Mr. William Neal. The one on climate, of course, would also look at the aspects related to greenhouse gas efficiency. So that's where it gets relevant to the Indian context, because that makes the connection between the policy side and the standardization side in a very strategic manner. Sorry for the interruption, just defining a few terms and acronyms. Christian, you have the floor again.
And you see here, this strategic advisory body plays a very central role to communicate with the European Commission, who's preparing the legislation, and the relevant technical committees and other groups in Senelec. So We then sought the teams, the SABI teams and the SABI topic groups. If you go to the next slide, please, you will see how we are organized inside SABI. The first three environmental issues in standardization, environmental management team and environmental monitoring strategy team, we call the classical SABI teams. Why do we call this the classical SABI teams? Because they were there before in the old SABI or in the then only SABI, and they were there as explained in one of the first slides. They are there and established since many years, since the late 90s, and they deal with the classical topics, environmental management systems and all the related things. And the circular economy topic group is the newest group, is the freshest group. We thought because circular economy is such a high agenda topic at the European Commission and in Europe at the moment, so we need a separate group to solely deal and coordinate this topic. And next slide, please. What do we do within the circular economy topic group? We set it up to provide a faster and more coordinated response to the horizontal and cross-sectoral standardization needs. What these standardization needs, I will explain on a slide later on. And then we should also internally within Senelec with the related TCs and other groups, we should also identify and discuss strategic standardization issues that we need and that we need to coordinate with other standardization organizations. Might it be on European level? We have the third one next to Senelec, for example, ETSI, but also on an international level. Next slide, please. So, what do we do? We again support SABI in this special field, circular economy. So we prepare, let's say, the SABI meetings for the circular economy related topics with the experts around. And one of the first action we have done in the last 2 years is doing a mapping on ongoing standardization initiatives and standardization needs related to circular economy. And this mapping provides us a certain state of the art or status quo analysis. Where are standards, where circular economy as such or as or certain subtopics of circular economy are already addressed, and where do we need new standards to support the Circular Economy Action Plan and European Green Deal. So next slide. The standards we are aiming for, or we still have in place, or under development in the case of repairability and product durability and the key terms around, we still have them in place on the European level. So we started with defining these concepts on a very horizontal level, including all the key terms and definitions. And we have also standards ready even before we started with the Circular Economy topic group on electronic and electrical equipment recycling, which we call WEEE in Europe. We have a whole series how to collect and recycle different streams of electronic waste, and we also have one standard which is very interesting, which is complementing this series, which is about preparing for reuse, the EN 40614. Here we set up basic criteria. What should you respect if you prepare a product for a second use, an electronic product for a second use, or some would say to refurbish it. In Europe we call it preparation for reuse and not refurbishment in this case, because it's a special defined legal term by the European directive. If you go as next slide, you can see the newer developments. Currently we are working on a huge standardization request. I don't know if you are familiar with this outside Europe. Standardization request is something kind of task given by the European Commission, detailed to CEN and CENELEC, where we have to make a plan on how to develop certain standards in a certain field. And at the moment there's a huge standardization request on plastics recycles and plastic recycling, quality criteria of recycled plastics we are working on. And a little bit earlier we started on the so-called material efficiency aspects for energy related products. We have published a series which is focusing on extending the product lifetime of energy related products, the reuse of components, recycled materials to be used in electronic products, and also the use of reused components. And next slide, which will be also my final slide, but I think for you it could be interesting to see what's going on international level, circular economy related TC overview on international and European level. And it's important to again highlight that yes, here in the middle we have the ISO TC323, which has circular economy in the title, but this is definitely not enough if you want to coordinate and watch out as a national standardization organization what is going on related circular economy topics. You should not forget ISO TC207, of course, which has all the environmental management systems, which has the life cycle assessment, and all important standards. Without that, circular economy would not be possible. And then you should also not forget ISO TC308, which is about chain of custody models, so about sharing information alongside the circular supply chain is very important. And on the electrotechnical side, we should not overcome over IEC 111, which has a lot of sector-specific standards which deal with, we have Fertron, which deal with recycling. We have a newest project on sustainable management of e-waste now in IEC TC 111. We have the, together with ISO 207, we have the so-called environmental conscious design. I think this could be also of interest here, because I heard we need more guidance how to better design products for circular economy. And this is something you could learn from the environmental conscious design standard, and so on and so forth. And some joint committees between different TCs here. And yeah, we try to synthesize here in Europe with SABI on the top, and then we go down a different route, mirroring the different ISO and IEC TCs on European level. So this would be my last slide, and again, I thank you for your attention here and for having me at this conference.
Thank you very much, Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you. The line ended a bit abruptly, but thanks. I think we heard you well, and I would like to express our gratitude for being very detailed and give us a deep dive in the institutional arrangements that you made between SENS and ELEC to accommodate the scope and the complexity and the interconnection in the circular economy standardization landscape. I think it's also excellent inspiration for GIZ REI and Ragnar that I'm going to call to the stage because that's food for thought for CESE and for the GIZ Resource Efficiency Initiative between EU and India to maybe initiate a deeper, more detailed crosswalk between the Indian standards that are already in existence or being developed by BIS and other standardization organizations, and the same in Europe with SENS, ELEC and ETSI, and try and see where there is the most interest maybe to work together and to foster more exchange and maybe like a soft alignment between those standards that are developed on both ends. So thank you very much for your participation again. We are now very, very late, but last but not least, I would like to invite Dr. Rachna Arora to the stage. Dr. Arora is the team leader of the Resource Efficiency Project I've just mentioned with the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, our German colleagues. It's a project that is sponsored both by the European Union budget and the German budget. We are very proud. It's I struggle to say Dr. Arora because I talk to Rachna on an almost daily basis or at least a weekly basis, and she has been one of my closest collaborators during my stay in India. I've learned a lot thanks to her, and she holds in her hand and the hand of her team who are represented in the room, I think an important part of the jigsaw puzzle for the future of the conversation on circular economy between you and India. So, Doctor, it's a pleasure to see you, and you have the floor.
Thank you. I think I'll just switch on. Yeah. So given the time, I think we also have still one more speaker. I would just quickly touch upon, I think, what we've just heard from our panelists earlier about what is it that we actually do on implementation as a project, which is also like EU CESE. We also have a project called EU Resource Efficiency Initiative, and this has been running since the last 6 years. This is our final year that we actually closed the project, but as Michael mentioned, we also have another kind of intervention being designed just as we speak. But given the context that both India and EU were so very proactively working around circular economy, at the global level, EU of course had a circular economy action plan in 2020-2019 there, and then of course in India, the Indian government was already mobilized to actually talk about mainstreaming circular economy there. This is a joint declaration that is between EU and India, which was signed by the heads of the state, our Prime Minister, and of course the President. EU actually agreed on it. The ones which are in the yellow, the 4 boxes, are actually something that we have done in the last 6 years on implementation, whether it's policy dialogues, whether it's exchange, knowledge exchange, or whether it's a discussion about policy to practice is what we have tried to implement. So very quickly, I think since the topics, and I'm also a speaker in the next session, which is also on circular economy and plastics and electronics, I'll quickly just leave some thought for the room, just as an overall, I would say, kind of a summary. When we actually talk about mainstreaming circular economy and resource efficiency, this has taken, of course, 10 years that Indian government is now kind of prepared, and it's a mainstream agenda. But the realization and all the reports that we actually see, Dr. Chatterjee mentioned some about it. It started with NITI Aayog, who actually thought about it not only as an environmental agenda, but also as an economic agenda, where industries need it. So standards are one part of moving that process. Now, where we talk about quality, where we talk about competitiveness, but that's where I think the SDG 12 and the entire implementation framework of that is something that all the documents that the government, NITI Aayog, sectoral ministries, state governments have actually looked at how do you implement circularity in their given space, in their given rules and policies. So each and every sector strategy kind of talks about producing more but with less, looking at sustainable consumption, creating areas where you can actually look at consumer engagements, reuse, reduce, repair, all the R's that you can actually think about, behavioral changes through that. And now we have, of course, a mission life which actually talks about reducing consumption. But then this is what I'm talking about is in totality. Also, sustainability reporting frameworks are crucial, which have now been put forward. Sustainable public procurement is something that everyone talks about, but as Dr. Chatterjee mentioned, something that MeitY proactively did was to actually look at subscription services. And this is not just a mention in their policy, this is something that they're trying to do through a change in their tendering and procurement policies. And this is a big move when I see a larger discussion around circularity. And there, I think the role that standards could actually play is about products which are put on the market, are quality, and also the product which are end of life or which have a material or a potential for secondary resource material extraction need to also meet quality parameters, which is kind of a bit missing area where I think Michael mentioned in the end that they need more work with the Sense-Cenelac and all in promoting this forward as well. So looking at those elements, I think one of the common framework that has been by the Indian government, by the businesses and everyone had actually been touched with the topic of circular economy is about criticality. And I think this is something that COVID in the last 3 years also brought very, very proactively, that supply chains are at risk. If we talk about electric vehicles, if we talk about mobility in general, or we talk about solar panels or any area, even when we look at decarbonization requires materials, and that's where criticality frameworks are really, really crucial. So that's one, I think, a common element which was put forward. So global production networks. Now this is something when we work with the telecom, we have Mr. Arun Agarwal also here, with telecom or with Ministry of IT, it's very clear they don't produce in India. But it's a global production network which is governing the standards and practices all across, not just for India but global. So when you now talk about using a CRM or an SRM, which is secondary raw material, the extraction or the utilization has to be similar as it is with the GPN, with the Global Production Network. So that's where the industry has shown a lot of resistance, a lot of reluctance to actually adopt something which is only India made. Because that will not fly. You can have a policy for India on e-waste, but you cannot have a production for India on electronic and electrical equipment. So I think this is something which was very, very crucial. Then of course the Indian government also looked at local manufacturing, and again an impact from COVID. No? Everything is kind of moving a lot to India. So when it comes to local manufacturing, you really need quality, you really need products, and you need materials in India. We are import dependent. Any electronic material that we actually talk about, of the entire lanthanide and the series that we actually talk about, all the materials are critical, are imported. We don't have it in India. But now the government of India in 2023 actually released a critical, like a 30 critical raw material framework is now in India. So I think this will also enable that change that we are all looking at. Knowledge products, again under that joint declaration of intent, we have actually supported the Ministry of Electronics and IT, Dr. Chatterjee mentioned about it. But all of these studies that we actually say are again a knowledge base which is added to the government of India, because as I think Mr. Rajay mentioned, finding experts to do something like this is not a systematic LCA. This is something where we are going to the informal sector and asking them how much to actually recover. But with that you can't come with a programmatic shift of how MeitY will design its CRM or a SRM policy. So I think that's why these reports, and they're all available on our website, are actually looking at critical raw materials, are actually looking at monitoring index by which Ministry of IT, especially for electronic equipments, can actually design critical material frameworks, can look at upgradation of informal sector, the scheme that we mentioned. That image that you see is actually about the 30 materials which the Indian government just identified as critical raw materials. So leaving copper aside, because copper of course is not considered anymore because there are recycling technologies, it's not considered as a critical raw material. So moving from that on knowledge as well as on supporting the ministries, we actually looked at policy to practice, where some of the interventions have been to support specific state governments. This is an example from Rajasthan State Pollution Control Board, where their request was to actually design a waste recycling park. Now when we talk about waste recycling park, that is not a park only looking at solar panels or only looking at electronic waste. That park in totality is actually looking at all kinds of material streams that you can recover there. which in itself is a very big thought, and that's, the park is already announced, there are people who have bidded for it, and they're actually looking at, I think 10 or 12 companies have applied for this. So they're looking at an integrated park which is kind of having plastics, electronics, end-of-life automobiles, all together into that. So we kind of did a best practices study with the EU experiences. We had a pre-feasibility study and the areas by which you can actually design a park, which is available, and of course we will actually showcase all of this work on the 18th and 19th of December in the workshop that we try to do. Another support on policy to practice for another state, which is Goa, on plastics, since the session was also on plastics, so just giving one more example. And this is also taking clue from the fishing nets, what we heard from our speaker from the EU talk about that EU is coming out with discarded fishing nets. EU is coming already on a policy on discarded fishing nets, on EPR, using extended producer responsibility. So similarly here, we are setting that context. We work with the Goa State Pollution Control Board, and Goa is the only state which was supported through our project also to have a circular economy strategy. So under that, marine litter, plastics were identified, and that's how we are actually supporting an entire collection mechanism. Now when we do this, we are not talking to just the pollution control board, we are actually working with the fishing communities to actually set up this model. And when we work with the fishing communities, we spent 1 year to just build a trust that right now this waste was being burnt. Either you burn or you leave it open and then it gets washed away into the oceans. So they're actually kind of now, it's only a small number, 358 kgs, that finally they agreed to collect. Department of Fisheries is onboarded. They want to set up a collection mechanism, put a collection bin where people can actually, the community has agreed to put their discarded fishing nets. And on the EU businesses, they've actually connected a company, which is an Italian company, Econil, only company, I would say globally, which actually collects discarded fishing nets. So they are here and they have done the assessment and they are pretty much happy with the amount of nylon nets that they can get out of this. So I think that's how we try to connect the local as well as the global operations to just see even small changes can bring in the circularity perspective, because companies who are looking at material really require clean supply. They can't just work with, as you see in the image, that's something we have translated in Konkani for the fishing community to understand that you can't just leave your fishing net and move out. You need it to be separated from nylon to ropes to everything. Then it's a value-add material. Otherwise, we can't say everything can be recycled. Of course, India has been recycling, but the quality is important, and only then BIS and organizations as SENAC can meet to the criteria and the standard that India has to come up with. So that I think is just a lot of food for thought. I'll stop here, but we have our QR code with all our publications in the last 6 years. So please try and reach out, otherwise I, Reva and Meher are always here for anything required.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aura. I must say, when I'm listening to you and the progress that you've made in Goa, in Rajasthan, towards this eco park and the vision, I'm a bit sad because I will not see through the realization. It's a long-term journey, but I think the vision, the end goal is what matters here. With that, I'd like to turn to our last speaker, Deputy Director General Arun Agarwal. Thank you very much for your patience. Dr. Agarwal has a Bachelor in Engineering. Is part of the Department of Telecom in Jammu and Kashmir, and a member of the Apex Committee on Circular Economy in the telecom sector. We are grateful for your participation. I know you have prepared slides, but we are already 1 hour late. We started 30 minutes late and now we are 1 hour late, so I did a very poor job at timekeeping. So we will put the slides on screen, and I will give you the... it's over there, so you can swap the slides yourself. But I would kindly request that we are as brief as possible, and that you pass the main ideas and maybe some concluding remarks on what you have heard in the room today. Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, namaskar to all. I am thankful for inviting me to this session, and I am also lucky to say, because many of the things which I wanted to cover are already covered. So I will be really very brief, and I will look at a different perspective. My first slide is about Vasudha Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. That was the theme of the G20 session that was held in September. The summit was held in September this year, and this theme shows that we should look at the things in a holistic manner. So the whole world is a family, and that is why there is only one earth. We have no other place to migrate. The whole earth is a family, and we have a common future. So the concept of circular economy is also intricately related to it. Circular economy looks at the things from a holistic point of view. It not only takes care of the present generation, but of all the future generation. That is why it is sustainable and green development. And India has accorded now a very important priority to sustainable development, circular economy. That is why at the G20, there are 12 commitments, and out of them, 4 commitments are related to sustainable, green development and environment related issues. So we have many policies, and the Ministry of Electronics has already come up with the policy and the action plan, but Department of Telecom, taking into account the specific requirement, is now trying to prepare a document that will lay out the vision, strategy and action plan on circular economy in the telecom sector. So this is all these things all of you know, so I will not waste time on it. I will only talk about circular economy in telecom. That is the last bullet of this slide, which shows that it is regenerative and it takes care of all the things, and finally in an ideal circular economy scenario there is no waste, that is net zero waste. So when we are talking about e-waste management, ideally speaking, there should not be any e-waste management. If we are following the circular economy principle, there should not be any e-waste and there should not be any requirement of e-waste management. That is the ideal circular economy environment, and I think though it may not be possible, it may be a utopian concept, but still we may try to approach it. This is just an overview of the telecom sector. India is the second country in the world in telecom sector. We have a very huge number of telephone subscribers, that is 1.18 billion, and we have got about 84 crore broadband subscribers. We have a huge telecom infrastructure, 3.5 million optical fiber cable, and then about 2.7 million base stations. So considering the size of the Indian telecom sector, it is necessary that we should come out with a holistic policy document regarding circular economy. So the aspects of circular economy are already covered, but I will only touch upon one thing, that when I was studying in college, I learned about 2 aspects. One was about the technical feasibility and another was about the commercial viability. But now we are learning the third aspect also, and that is environmental sustainability. That is very important. So just like that JAM Trinity, this is also a trinity: environment, technical, and then commercial. So now I will directly come to Vision 2030 for circular economy. We are trying to prepare, we have been trying to prepare a document on vision, strategy and action plan for circular economy. There are 6 pillars for it, and then the idea is to mainstream the circular economy principle, the use of IT, the use of secondary raw materials, and then it will be regenerative, sustainable and inclusive. So these are the various important points of our vision. I think time is very short, so I will just read the highlights. The idea is to mainstream the repaired equipment, used equipment, refurbished equipment, and then for that purpose a lot of efforts and lot of awareness will be required. And then for circular economy, to mainstream the circular economy principle, lot of investment will be required. Then there is a requirement from the government side that there should be adequate standards for this type of equipment, for refurbished, reused and then remanufactured equipment, so that there may be procurement. There should be good quality control in this regard also. Next point is about the recommendation or the strategy for it. So we have prepared the draft recommendation and we have done in a very collaborative manner. All the recommendations are in the nature of affirmative action, because the industry always has an apprehension that it will increase the compliance burden. But we have tried to prepare the standards in such a manner that they are affirmative, there is no compliance burden, and then they should lead to sustainability. These are the various categories of the recommendation, like there are policy initiatives are there, and then there are other things, regulatory things are there, institutional framework issues are also there, and then you can have a look at them. Just to save time, I will not read them. And then finally, there are many government interventions also which I will like to mention, that our department is running many policy for self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So as of now, there is no specific element of circular economy inbuilt in that. Now we have proposed in our recommendation that an element of circular economy should also be there. Like there is one scheme, production linked incentive scheme for telecom equipment. So if a manufacturer uses his own design, that he is provided additional incentive of 1%. Now it is proposed that if the equipment conforms to circularity requirement, then additional incentives, say 1%, may also be provided. Similarly, in other government schemes of Department of Telecommunication, like DCIS, Digital Communication Innovation Square, it is proposed that that some quota, that some funds can be reserved for products of circular economy. And in another scheme of the Government of India, TTDF, Telecom Technology Development Fund, there is a criteria for selecting the projects for R&D. And under this scheme, there is one novelty criteria. So it is proposed that under this novelty, there should be some marking for circularity criteria also. So just like that, it is proposed in the recommendation to go for circularity and provide incentive and preference for such product and research. Another important idea, because we have mentioned that we have tried to follow the government of India's guidelines of minimum government, maximum governance. So it is recommended that we should follow the IT approach. We should make maximum leverage of blockchain, big data, and then AI for implementation of circular economy. So these are the circular economy recommendations in detail. I am not going to read them because time is very short. This is my last slide. This is just about the G20 New Delhi Declaration. And there is a full-fledged para in this declaration on circular economy, which clearly says that adequate importance, maximum importance, should also be accorded to circularity, to environmental issues. And then we should not only look at the economic issues, economic prosperity, but equal importance, or rather I should say, more importance should be accorded to sustainability, because that is the foundation. If a methodology, if a process, or a product, or a procedure is not sustainable, we should not go for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, for your remarks. Thank you in particular for recalling the positive momentum that was initiated or accelerated by the Indian presidency of the G20 with giving such an important spotlight to circular economy, not only in the Leaders' Declaration, the New Delhi Declaration on a policy level, but also through the launch of Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Industrial Coalition, which has been formally initiated with FICCI as a secretariat and with the CEO of Panasonic India as a chairman. So there is not only the conversation going on through the Indian presidency, and I trust in the Brazilian and South African presidencies in the coming years, this dialogue on G20 and circular economy is going to intensify, but also an opening for the industry to join in this vision. And indeed, it's a very long-term journey. We realize that getting circular in a sector and across sector is probably going to take 1 or 2 decades, although the time is very scarce. We have to be realistic that it's a major change of paradigm for the economy and for the industry. So we have to be mindful that the more targets, the more specific performance indicators, the more specific benchmarks and inclusive benchmarks we are, the easier it gets for the industries to anticipate, because the regulatory framework, or at least the direction of travel, becomes more predictable. And so we reduce the risk of investing in the wrong place, or not enough, or not soon enough. So it's a very useful example from the telecom sector. I'm grateful for your participation. With that, and with my most heartfelt apologies for being so late and for taking so much more of your time that was initially planned, I would like to close this session, and thank all of you for your participation.
Thank you, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to all the speakers. Now, I request Mr. Michael Bucky to present our mementos to the distinguished speakers. To Mr. Arun Agarwal, DDG DOT, Jammu and Jharkhand Ministry of Communications. Thank you. Dr. Rachana Arora, Team Leader EU REI. Thank you, Madam. Thank you for the lovely presentation. To Shri Ajay K. Lal, Head CSD BIS. Thank you, sir. Is Dr. Sandeep around? Oh, he left. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sir, on behalf of the organizer, I would like to present this memento to you.
And thank you very much also to all the panelists online and to the participants online.
Yeah, so the online we will send the memento them to the, because this is the e-certificate, we will be sending to them to the online as well. So I have one request, should we start the next session immediately? You can pick up the tea and come back and start the session, otherwise it will be too late. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I request all the speakers to join for a group photo. Thank you.
एक